Simon Davis with It's a Fencer's Life, Lessons from the Trenches.
Hey guys, well, Quotable Fencer, Simon here, and today, Lessons from the Trenches, we are talking about how to charge for quote and why, in my opinion, I think it is very important. And a little bit of history on that. For the last 25 years of fencing, probably the last 23 years, I haven't charged for quotes. So you ask yourself, why are you charging now? And I look at it now and I can break it down to basically one thing. I have been missing on so much money and I've been running around the countryside doing free stuff for people, tie kicks, everything else, and you don't get the job. So I've devised this way and I want to talk to you about it. I know it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and believe me, for a long time it made me really uncomfortable asking for money for quotes, but you have to sort of get out there and get yourself uncomfortable or get yourself comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the one thing I did realise is that I had a few money issues mentally that were blocking me, and that's why I felt really awkward about things. Moving forward now, I don't have a problem with it. I think for me, last year, I think you put on my bottom line an extra $5,000. And yeah, so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about why I think it's important and a couple of the benefits that it does. So for me, obviously the importance is the extra income. It pays for a couple of things. It pays for a bit of your fuel, pays for a bit of your time. It doesn't cover everything, but it is just paying for that little bit of extra stuff that you have to do. For me personally, because I do them all myself, it's an add-on for me, for my business. If you're running a bigger company, then maybe you have to look at the logistics and how you work around that. But for me, the process is pretty simple, that I'm the one with the experience, that they want my knowledge and my experience, so I give it to them, but I don't give it for free. Basically, that's that in a nutshell. One of the things about charging for quotes, a couple of ways. When I first started off, I would charge for the quotes and the client would then ask me, did they get it back off their job? At first, I started giving them back to them off their job, and you can do that one or two ways. You can just increase your price of your job a little bit and take it back off for that, or you can just take it straight off. You're sort of losing that little bit off your quote again. But as time has gone on, I have become more confident. I don't take it off the job, and I tell them that I don't take it off the jobs. And the reason for that is because, as I said, it takes time for me to travel around and do quotes. It costs me fuel, and then I've got to come home and write them up on the computer and do things that way. So you can flip side it on the fact that some people do written quotes on the job, on the spot. I know of another fellow who does them on his iPad while he's there with a client, which is great. But for me, that puts a little bit too much pressure on me to get everything exactly spot on, 100% correct, with the client sitting there having that pressure sort of put on yourself to work out, have you remembered absolutely everything. So I take photos of every job that I quote or a video, bring them back home, analyze it from there, and then go away. So how I do it is all about the wording. And just before we go into that, one other thing that it helps with the client, and it's a psychological advantage, I believe. I haven't studied right into this, but once somebody pays once and you can get them to their hand in their pocket to pay once, they are more likely to pay twice. So how I do it is I basically reserve this for the right of the private domestic customer. I don't do it for commercial. I struggle with the commercial, getting the money out of them there. It's a full-time battle half the time, just getting your commercial or civil clients to pay deposits and materials and things like that. So trying to get them to pay for a quote is a little bit harder as well. But the way I deal with my clients is that when people ring me up, I get them to follow a process. The first process is that they have to send me an email. And in that email, I need their name, obviously their email, their mobile, their site address. If they can send me photos of the job, 9 times out of 10, I won't charge for a quote, because I can just sit here in my office in my own time, whip one out pretty close to the mark as an estimate. And then if they then want to decide to go ahead with that, well, then I'll go and charge a quote fee on top of that when I get to the job site to do a last minute appraisal. But that's one way. Asking them to send you an email, and a lot of them will ask you to, can we just send you a text? And for a small business enterprise where you're doing the job yourself and on the tools and off the tools yourself, getting texts during the day makes you lose concentration. One, that's number one. Number two is those texts get lost in the lineup. And if you're like me, I'm getting sometimes 10, 20 texts a day from clients or phone calls asking, no, we'll just text you this, we'll text you that, and then go through the list, and I just forget it. I really do. I just couldn't be bothered chasing them. Once there's a lot there, so I just bypass them. So I go the other way, ask them to send me an email. Emails are so much easier to flag, to put in a list yourself so you can chase them down. But it does one or two things. As soon as you have an email, you're building a list of clients that you can send letters to or brochures to, or send them links for Google reviews or Facebook reviews after you've done the job, which is really, really handy as well. But it does one thing for me, and the biggest thing that I find it does for me is that I give them instructions, and if they can follow instructions, they're more generally like to follow instructions down the track as well. Weeds out tyre kickers when I ask for money straight away. A lot of old tradies in the residential don't like paying for their quotes. But today's era, I'm finding that a lot of clients are accepting that, especially now that they're staying home to work from home because of the corona and whatever else, for any other reasons. We've become a sort of stable society. The tradies are the ones out there running around and trying to get to jobs. And in my experience up here, I can do a 10-hour day and do probably 10 quotes and drive up to 150 kilometres in between clients just to try and get around to everybody. And that's not sitting there doing the working out. That's just measurements, having a chat with the client if they're home, and getting some photos. Now, I find if they're not home, it actually speeds me up a little bit, and I can then do all my discussions with them via email or on the phone. I then push them into Quotient, which I use constantly, and I can actually track all the conversations in that, which is another good thing that why I like Quotient so much. But following those simple instructions and paying for a deposit, generally you're going to weed out all the tire kickers, all the people who are just chasing a 3, 4, 5 quotes. And I get it why they want to do that, 3 maybe, but me personally, from this area that I know a lot of, and I'm in the game, so I know a lot of the builders, a lot of the tradies and everything else. So if I want something, generally I've already got it half in mind what I'm prepared to pay, and then I'm also basically already 3/4 of the way there. So I really don't want to go and chase 3 or 4 quotes. I want probably the best person that I think is going to do the best job and pull them into the job and get it done. And I'm happy to pay for somebody to come out to my place and give me a quote on something that I need, that I want. So that's my opinion. I think it does those things. As I said, it's a mental block first. You've got to get over. You've got to be uncomfortable for a little bit until you become comfortable. You then got to pick your market. So again, my upper end market seems to not be too phased about paying for a quote. I charge $88, so it's $80 plus just. I've got an app on my phone, so I can do it on the day. So my process is such. Again, the phone rings, I get a message, I ask them to take my email down and send me an email so I can log it and I can follow it up a lot easier. I'm probably at a 70% rate there of people dropping off and giving me that email, but then sometimes they'll ring me up, they want everything else, and then they won't take an email, or they'll get your email. You know, there are some little issues that I haven't sort of foolproofed yet. I don't have a secretary with me full time to take those messages, and that's another way you can do it. You can put a V on, she can take all the phone calls and then send them the information that they require. The big thing for me is once they get the email, I write them an email back. And one of my coaches and mentors before used to tell me quite often that don't tell your customers what you can't do, tell your customers what you can do. So I will tell my customer, okay, it might be a Monday, I've got this message. I don't say I can't get there until next week. I'll just say I can do a quote for you on Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, or I can do a quote for you the following Monday at 2 o'clock. Send me your information, email, and come back. So then once I get that email, I respond to them and I say, just up on our phone conversation, I've got your address, we're booked in for 2 o'clock on Monday. And I do tell them over the phone as well that there is a site appraisal fee and it is payable on the day. So I just put that back in the email. Listen, the site appraisal fee to $88. It's payable on the day when I get there, measure up, and it covers off my time and a bit of fuel for me to go back and do what I have to do. If you're paying to do that, or estimator to do that, then you're definitely going to need to charge for your quotes, because somebody sitting in the office writing all this stuff up for you and doing that, you have to be on top of that, and obviously that's a wage you have to cover. So that's how I do it. Go out on the job. It's all about the wording. It's all about making your customer feel comfortable and making aware of where you stand. So I don't fluff around anymore. I used to. I'd get the little pensioners ring me up and we do this. I'm only a pensioner pensioner, and I used to sort of get in quite a lot, and I wouldn't charge for a quote, and then I'd take money off their give them discounts because of pensioners and whatever. Look, in my opinion, if you're giving discounts, you're losing out on money anyway, and if you're already tight to start with, well, you're just going to get tighter, and there's no room for error if you're at that low margin and you're already tight, because you're sort of fishing out of the bottom of the barrel, and you're waiting for that phone call to ring so you can chase that work. And I like to be sort of a bit more preemptive, and the people follow me up more so now that they're chasing me for what I need to do. I've got a long lead time, which I find between 10 to 12 weeks people drop off and they won't wait, but then I can flip into a bit of rural work or something like that. It's more the domestic people who seem to be in a hurry. Their fences are falling down for 20 years, and then all of a sudden they have to have it built the next day because somebody's coming for dinner or something silly like that. And swimming pools is another one. They will organise, found clients will organise swimming pools and get everything organised for that, and then forget the fence until the water's in. And it's like, well, we can't put water in until the fence is up, and there could be a 3-month wait. So I like to keep all that correspondence in an email so I can track it and I can keep it, and then we can go from there and have, so we've had this discussion, this is where it is. If you're not happy paying for a quote, that's fine. Don't pay for it, I just won't come. And it's quite easy. So the process again, phone call, email, return email to confirm their appointment and then how much the site appraisal fee is, and then you can follow them up with written quote and their pictures and everything else and send it off to them. I actually, before I get to the job, I get them to email me one more time just before going out to the job, just to make sure that they're happy with my process. It's pretty simple. It doesn't take me very much time at all. I can bang 4 or 5. You can write an email on a template, have it all worded out there that this is your process and these are your payment terms, and that I do that with civil too. I send my civil and commercial clients now my terms. If they don't want to play by my terms, I just refuse to give them a price. And, they'll beg and scrape a lot of the time because they just want prices out of you to compare to blow down the road. And if they're not willing to pay by your terms or play by your game, I just won't play anymore. And that pisses a lot of people off, I can tell you. But I'm not giving my expertise and my information away willy-nilly with all the experience that I've got on the ground. I'm just not going to do it anymore. So I hope that helps. Only a little quick one today, but I just thought that might be something. I know some of the guys are saying they don't have a problem quoting, or they do have a problem, but they'd rather know what my process is. So yeah, again, you can do with your sales team and the way you sell your jobs. Times are a little bit different now. We seem to be in really high demand, fencers and landscapers and tradies. So there's a lack of people out there to do the jobs, but I'm finding there's a lot of cowboys coming in, new startups who have never done anything, can see a quick buck, make more than their wages. So they're all coming in and starting. But a lot of the time, if they're not putting their processes in and systems in order, these guys will just burn out and fade away. I've seen it so many times over the last 25 years. You think there's a glut of people coming in doing everything, and then all of a sudden they're gone again. And it really hasn't affected the way I do business. It really hasn't affected my branding or my name. So I'm all for it. And if you can get an extra $5 grand, 10 grand in your bank just doing domestic quotes, even if you're paying somebody to run around and do domestic quotes and he's got an app on his phone and he can charge a client, it's not a 50 grand year or 60 grand you're going to cover wages, but it's something that is beneficial to your company, and it's better than my opinion. It's better than a kick in the pants. So that's where I'm at. Email instructions, return email from the client, and or instructions to the client with that return email before you go out and get on the job site, do your measurements, say right up before you leave, how are we going to put this payment through? A lot of times I'll ask you for cash or for a credit card. I can do both. Obviously cash is always handy, but a credit card, I've got an app on my phone. I just push the numbers into my phone. By the time I've processed and pressed the connect button, the client has a receipt already for that quote estimation fee, and which they can claim against what they need to do, and then you can go back and process that job, write it up, send it to them with a good timely frame. One of the things I'm hearing at the moment from a lot of the domestic clients, and I'm sort of falling into this a little bit too, because I get a few bigger jobs, and because we're only a small team, I can't cover them off quick enough. So I've got a couple of subbies that come in and do a bit here for me here and there, but most of the time I leave in-house for me and I just have a long waiting time. But one of the things we're hearing is that they just can't get anybody to quote. And, I picked up a really big job at Christmas time because everybody was so busy, and I was so busy too, but I was the only one who went and quoted it. And I had done work for this client before, and he was asked to get 3 quotes, and he just couldn't get anybody to go and do it, and basically the ticket was mine. So there's those things that sort of come around once you start getting your branding up and in your building, right? If you're doing your job correctly, especially in the residential maintenance area, you won't see a lot of these clients again unless the fence falls over or something like that. But you may see them again if they've got different neighbours to do a different site. They may need, one side of fencing at a time to suit their budget. But that's all part of your sales process that you have to refine. But for quoting, I think getting that first payment psychologically puts you in an advantage to get the next one. And two ways with that is if you are telling them you're going to take it off the quote, people will like to get you back to make sure they can try and get your bucks back. One of the big sales processes that you've got to realise is that your clients will buy on emotional decisions, emotional reasons, but then back it up by logic. Okay, so they might be buying a fence because they might want a 6-foot Colorbond fence and dark green, heritage green, cottage green, whatever you want to call it, blah, 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 and then back it up by getting the swimming pool that there's a bad seed in the area, so they need the privacy or the security, or, they've got mum and dad who are coming to stay and they need their privacy because they're well, and, so they back it up by sort of logical reasons. So it's all emotion buying, but backed up by logic. So if you remember that, and then you can sell to your clients and you get them to follow instructions, you'll generally have an easier run at your job just based on your communication with them. So I hope that clears that up. You want to talk to me about it, please give me a shout in the fence post, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
Thanks again for listening to the Fencer's Life podcast. Be sure to follow on Twitter, Instagram, or the free Facebook group, The Fence Posts. And of course, Simon's personal Facebook, facebook.com/Simon M. Davis 1. And also check out Spotify to get weekly episodes. If you believe Simon can help you make a difference in your fencing business, please reach out to him on Messenger or visit his coaching mentoring site at theprofitablefencer.com. Until then, stay safe and happy fencing.